Hello, so my name's Este Darin-Cooper, and I'm the Director of Regulation and Strategy at the Office of the Australian Information Commissioner. We have a very unfortunately long title. We're referred to often as the OAIC or just simply the Privacy Commission. Now, most fintechs will handle data about people as part of providing their products or services. And privacy is all about how you handle that data. So I'm going to keep things quite simple this evening and just talk to you about, first of all, why you should even care about privacy. Secondly, what are some of the risks to your business if you ignore privacy? And then I'm going to finish up with just some quick tips to help minimise your privacy risk profile. Now, your business might not be regulated by privacy legislation at this stage of its life cycle. So the question is, why should you even care about privacy? Well, the key answer to that question is that good privacy drives commercial success. It's important, there are significant commercial and reputational benefits that flow from good data handling practices. And in the digital age, it's increasingly important to consumer trust. I might use an analogy and ask you to think of it this way. In the physical world, people's cash is a very highly valued product. Companies like Armaguard provide services transporting that cash. Now, why would people trust Armaguard with such a highly valuable commodity? Well, the answer is because Armaguard has built a reputation around providing secure services, and it also has the security practices to back that up. The heavy-duty uniforms and armoured trucks that you see all contribute to the message that Armaguard is a secure provider of those services, and they've built that reputation to support it. In the digital age, people's data is a little bit like their cash. Individuals will have the confidence to use your products and services if they have confidence that you will handle their data appropriately and keep it secure. Perhaps just think of how Apple is trying to position themselves in this space as a company with a good reputation for protecting people's data. You should want your business to be the equivalent of Armaguard in the privacy sphere. Privacy isn't about secrecy, it's about being transparent about how you handle the data and giving individuals the confidence that you will do so appropriately and securely. Having good and clear data handling practices is also one way you can send a message to the market that you're a player that's here to stay. It's no different to getting the right company structure, getting the right insurance, building a decent social media profile. Signalling that you have good data handling practices shows that you want to be in the market and that you're there for the long term. Just to emphasise my point, I'd just like to elaborate a little further on some of the risks of ignoring privacy. The first thing is damage to your reputation. Most of you will be familiar with the data breach that happened to Ashley Madison and the consequences of that for their company. It could jeopardise your funding, your scaling, or your potential for acquisition. If you ignore privacy now in the early stages, you may need to redesign products or services to retrofit privacy later on. Bolting privacy on at a later stage can be very costly and will also lead to delays in rollout. The third thing that could happen is that there could be increased regulatory scrutiny, and that will only lead to more compliance obligations. And finally, there are public sanctions for breaching the Privacy Act. And again, that's further damage to your reputation and bottom line. Now, I mentioned earlier that the Privacy Act might not yet apply to your businesses, and that's because the Privacy Act doesn't apply to businesses that have an annual turnover of $3 million or less. But if you trade in personal information, it will apply. But my question to you is this: do you want your business to stay small, or do you want it to grow? And do you want it to potentially be acquired by a larger player? Well, if the answer to that is yes, then you need to plan for privacy now and build it into your product or services from the beginning. So with that scary picture in mind, what can you do about it? Some tips to minimise your privacy risk profile. The first one is conduct what we call a privacy impact assessment. Now that can be fairly straightforward. It's all about identifying privacy risks and looking at ways to manage them. It's about designing your product or service for privacy. We have a guide that will step you through that, and that's available on our website. The second thing is to be open and transparent about how you handle information. Put out a public policy around how you will handle information and give individuals notice about what you will do with their information when you collect it, and make sure that that's easy to understand. Thirdly, reduce your risk profile by collecting and retaining anonymised data where possible. If you do need to collect information about individuals, then try to minimise the amount that you collect and de-identify or anonymise it as soon as possible when you no longer need it. You need to secure the data you hold. That's about identifying the physical and digital security threats to your data, and make sure that you take appropriate steps to mitigate those risks. And finally, despite your best efforts, you need to plan for the worst case scenario. You need to be prepared for a data breach. Have a data breach response plan in place and know how you will manage the harm that individuals may suffer, and also the damage to your reputation. Again, we have a guide that can help you create a data breach response plan. So with that in mind, I'd just like to tell you some of the things that we're doing to help the fintech sector and the startup sector more generally. We have a range of guidance on our website at the moment, but we are in the coming weeks, literally the next week or so, intending to launch a draft piece of guidance aimed specifically at startups. And that'll include a little more detail around some of the tips that I've mentioned today. We'll be making that available for public comment, and we'd be very interested to hear if there's anything missing from that guidance or anything that could be made clearer in that guidance, and that will be available from our website, and I'll also try to circulate through this forum so that you can access it more easily. And lastly, if you do have any questions, please do get in touch with our office. You can look at our website or call our inquiries line, or contact me if you have any more specific questions. I think that's the end of the presentations, and so I'll hand back over.